Hey, I'm Dean and this is Legacy Voyage. In Season 1, I'm documenting my journey to earning my first 100K net worth as a full-time college student. Join me as I share some of the lessons I learned along the way.
What is waste? I mean, what really is it if we try to define it? Like the other day, I remember my brother brought it up. He was talking about, man, alcohol and drugs and all those things, those are such a waste of money. And I took a step back for a moment and kind of thought about that statement and asked myself, is it really a waste of money? What does that even mean for it to be a waste? And then I kind of probed him a little more. I was like, why do you say that? Why do you think it's a waste of money? And then I kind of took it at a different angle. Why would something like donating to charity not be viewed as waste? And it really got my mind running a lot about this thing that I'm calling the philosophy of waste. And philosophy really, in my book, just means thinking deep about it and trying to find ways where I can try to apply it to my life. I'm not sure how, but I just like thinking deep about these types of things. And so a lot of things came to mind when talking about waste. The first thing is that it doesn't only have to apply to money. It can apply to a lot of different aspects or domains of life. For example, the big one I think is time and asking questions like that. And so I came down to thinking something like social media. Because with social media, if I ask you, is it a waste of time? I mean, maybe you spend hours and hours scrolling on social media, so you might say yes. But for a different person who's like a social media manager and they do it for a living, they would say probably not because that's what they do for their work. And when you look at one end of the spectrum where it's a complete waste of time, you're spending hours and hours on it, and you probably spend too much time on it. Or on the other end of the spectrum, it's your job and you have to actually for work or something. If you look at those two ends, at what point does social media become a waste of time? Where you're doing it for a living, but then it crosses this threshold or this certain point where it becomes a waste of time. And this gets into two other big points that I've been thinking through about waste. Where, first of all, it's subjective. That something you view as a waste of time might not be a waste of time for me. And the way I like to think through this is like poop, for example. All humans, we all poop. For us, it's literally waste. I think we literally call poop waste. But for plants, it's fertilizer and it gives them life and energy and food to grow. So, in the same way, we could look at time. Like, for example, maybe someone might view social media as like a time to wind down and maybe get away from the world and have a couple laughs. Where if it's for their mental health, then I think probably it's not a waste of time because it helps them get through this certain time, I think. Whereas for the other person, they might scroll through social media and feel bad about themselves, and it would be negative for their mental health. And so I think the point that it crosses over that threshold of not being a waste of time to being a waste of time is when the costs outweigh the benefits. And another way I like to think of this is when it's a negative cash value. Because it's a question that I always come back to is what's the cash value? What's the cash value of your beliefs, of your phone, of the time you spend on social media, all these different things, because I think it helps, at least me, quantify it a lot more. Whereas if I think of something in terms of cash value, I mean, if I just ask, what's the value of social media? I mean, I could give some abstract idea of how social media might help some things and then might not help others. I suppose where if I say cash value, what's the cash value of that thing? And I think it really gives some concrete ideas to what it means for something to be valuable. And then this opened up another important point I think about waste is that some things are more negative than others. Some things have a higher negative cash value than other negative cash value things. To give an example, let's do something like an hour of time. If you have an hour of time and you fill that up with two things, one of them could be, I don't know, doing drugs or something, like doing hard drugs. I'm talking cocaine or something crazy like that. The other one could be, I don't know, scrolling through social media. I'm talking an hour of like mindless scrolling, random things that don't really apply to life. Which one it probably has the more negative cash value? It's probably the drugs, where I think in both scenarios we would probably agree they both have a negative cash value. One has a higher negative cash value than the other. Because the important point here is that it's not like waste is this binary thing where either something is a waste or something is not a waste. I think it's more like this spectrum of how much of a waste is it. And those are just some of the findings that I've had on philosophizing about this thing of waste. Because applying it not only to time or cash or whatever, I think you can apply it to like thoughts. What's a waste of your thought? What's a waste of your beliefs? Waste of your energy. Then after looking at something like that, asking the question, how much of a waste is it? Now, honestly, I have no idea how to actually apply those types of philosophical, very abstract thinking into my real life now, but I do think there is a way. Because even thinking through something like the philosophy of waste, I've kind of applied that same thinking or those same concepts to philosophy of culture or philosophy of identity. And I've seen a lot of the same similarities cross over these completely different subjects, I think. I'll give an example. I've seen a lot of similarities between something like philosophy of identity and culture. Because in both of those scenarios, and even waste, there are examples of something we would see as positive work culture or positive family culture or a positive identity. Then the question becomes, if we have like a toxic culture or if we have a negative identity that's kind of holding us back, then what actions or steps can we take to push the culture we're a part of or push our identity towards what we would like it to be, what we want it to be? An example of this in the work culture, which I talked about in the last episode, was praise versus punishment, and praising what we would like to see more often, and applying that same concept in cultures to identities, where we are praising ourselves and celebrating our successes when they push our identity to where we want it to be. A great example of this is me, even yesterday or today, where I'm praising and I'm celebrating the fact that I actually did go out to the park, went for a walk, and worked out. Even if it was just an exercise or two, and celebrating that instead of punishing myself for eating the cookie or eating the cake or whatever. Because I think celebrating those will probably push me towards the identity that I want to take on more. And even applying that same thinking to waste with something like social media, I think is a great example. Instead of beating yourself up for scrolling on social media for endless hours, which I can admit I've low-key been doing that with LinkedIn, taking a step back, celebrating the fact that I took a step back, and then pushing myself towards something that probably isn't a waste of time, or that I don't think is a waste of time. So maybe that's how everything connects and how I can actually apply it to my life. But these are just some thoughts that I had and wanted to share. With my life update, first things first is health. It's been tough. Definitely tougher than last week. And the reason is because coming out here from Evanston, where I had a routine down and I knew what I was going to eat for breakfast and lunch. Whereas now, being on vacation, not really knowing what food is going to come next, so I kind of don't know how to plan out my meals. And then on top of that, not having a gym to go to, it's definitely been tough to get things in order. But actually, I mean, past 3 days I've been going to the park and I've been hitting my steps. Not 12,000, but I mean, super close to 12,000, like 11K. And before that, I was really struggling to hit my steps. So that's something that I'm definitely happy with. And I've also kind of developed this new habit, which I'm still trying to workshop, but a new tiny habit of, especially when I'm on vacation and I'm probably less likely to go to the gym or less likely to get my workout in, the tiny habit will be starting off my workout with very simple calf raises. I think I got this from Alex Ramosi or something, but he starts every workout with calf raises. Because if I'm sitting in bed and I'm like, man, I don't want to work out, I don't want to go and do this or that. I mean, like, you could always get another set of calf raises. Calf raises are just so simple and easy. So I don't know. I'm trying to use that as a starting point to work my tiny habit off of. And that's, I think so far for the past 3 days, this is going pretty well. So we'll see how that continues. Mental health, it's been pretty good, I think. Considering how physical health has kind of been down lately. I mean, the biggest thing with physical health, honestly, especially being on vacation, is the diet. Which, not saying that out loud, is probably the biggest thing holding me back in terms of the person that I want to become. Because the person that I want to become is someone who can delay gratification. Meaning, just because I see the cookie doesn't mean I'll eat it right now. I can delay that gratification. It's someone who is jacked. I don't know, just because I want to be jacked. Not even just to be jacked, but just someone who's healthy. Because I want to be able to, I don't know, run around, play some rugby when I'm older. So probably the diet thing is the biggest thing. And not only that, but monitoring that self-talk. which I think is really actually good about my mental health being so healthy, considering my diet's been kind of off because I'm not beating myself up over eating, which I think is awesome. I used to beat myself up for that all the time. So I think that's definitely a plus. And then remembering the stuff that I talked about earlier is like cognitive diffusion. Just because I think something doesn't mean I have to act on it. Just because I look at the cookie and I want to eat the cookie, I can sit with that and still not act on it, knowing full well that I want to. Maybe practicing that a bit more would definitely help. And also sitting with the fact that I actually hate the feeling of being bloated, which is kind of ironic because I'm bloated right now. But yeah, I actually never thought about it that way. Like, I'd rather be hungry than be bloated because I just feel way more in the zone when I'm hungry or when I'm not bloated. So maybe that's something that I should just keep in mind as I'm going throughout my day more. And also another thing that I'm trying to do is I've definitely been struggling with it. Even this episode brought it up a bunch, but staying away from shoulds and musts and have tos, all of these things that imply I have to do something. Because with implying that I have to do it, there's always that or else at the very end of it, and that or else is really what hits you. And it's this thing called masturbation, where I must do something or I must not do this thing. Because what happens is if I end up going against that thing, then it kind of ends up with me beating myself up over something, and that's not really something I want to do, which is one of the ways that I've seen is turning those musts into wants and being like, okay, it's not like I have to go pick up my sister later today. I want to because I want to spend that time with her. It's not like I have to go and work out today. I want to because I want to be healthy. And I think it puts it in a frame that it's just honestly better because I've been trying to do that a lot, and I definitely catch myself sometimes where I'm like, oh, I said should. But even with something like that, it's not like you should say want, or it's not like you should stay away from shoulds. It's I want to stay away from shoulds and musts because I don't want to beat myself up all the time. That's just something that I've learned briefly. I haven't really dove in super deep into that, but it's something that I've noticed has helped me personally. With spiritual health, I think the biggest thing in terms of spiritual health, in terms of next steps, would be two things. Probably something called this patriarchal blessing. And I'll pursue that more and focus on that more, especially when I get back to Chicago. The second thing that's probably more top of mind is tithing. And it kind of hits in well with this idea of a waste of money. Because some people might look at tithing and see it as a complete waste of money. Why would you give up 10% of everything you earn? That's just a waste. Whereas other people might look at it and say, it's not a waste. It's going to the Lord's work, or it's going to the true church, or something like that. And it's just been something I think it through, because if I look at what the tithing money goes towards, a lot of philanthropy, a lot of charity work, a lot of donations. It also goes towards a lot of fancy buildings and super expensive couches and chandeliers and all those things that goes into temples or churches. And so I look at those things and be like, okay, is it a waste of money? And I think it definitely depends on the perspective that you look at it from. Because the two perspectives I'm really thinking this through is someone who believes in the church or believes in the restored gospel, and someone who doesn't. Because someone who doesn't believe will look at that and be like, yeah, of course it's a complete waste of money. Why are you spending all that money on buildings and stuff when you could just start spending it towards charity work? Whereas the person who believes in the restored gospel of Christ, they would say something like, well, in the eternal perspective, coming at it from that view, that is God's presence on earth. Those are the most sacred buildings in the world. So it only makes sense that we put that type of money to those buildings, because it's like a physical manifestation of God's love or something like that, or his presence. And so it really depends on those two perspectives, I think. And as I'm going on this faith journey, not really knowing where it's going to take me, that's just been a thought that I've had. And we'll see where it takes me. Maybe I'll start paying my tithing and see where that takes me, or I don't pay my tithing. I don't know. Eventually I will. We'll see. Play by ear, because that's really been this whole journey. It's been the whole part of the voyage, I think. It's playing the game. On to relationships. First one, definitely family. Family's going well. Especially being out here for vacation. Something that I've been thinking about is, what does it mean to prioritize my health over family or over relationships? Like, even the other day, we were all just hanging out. Someone was sleeping. Another one was like on their phone. I was like, would it be in this scenario, what would it look like if I prioritized my health over my relationships? Like, with that framework, can I go for a 30-minute workout? Or would it be better for me to stay and hang out more and just wait for an open to appear where I can go and get my workout in. Or even something that probably makes a little more sense. What does it mean to prioritize relationships over wealth? Like right now, as I'm on vacation, would it be me just spending all of that time with family and completely disregarding wealth, or recognizing that wealth actually does play a role in things? And so I do want to spend some time towards getting some work done as I'm out here. And what will that look like if I'm on vacation? What does that look like when I'm back in school? And probably a huge majority of my time is spent on wealth activities, like going to school and taking classes and doing projects for internships. But honestly, on that one, I've still been philosophizing about that a lot. Like, what does it mean to prioritize? And where do those trade-offs really come into play? But, I mean, in terms of relationships, they've been going well, I think. Like, been able to get closer to all my siblings, parents, and honestly, a lot of those things I've learned because of Marley, my girlfriend. And she's really helped me a lot of seeing what it means to be human. And honestly, I still don't know exactly what it means. Like, what does it mean to be human? But she's probably like the most human person I know. And she's helped me become more of a human, whatever that means. Still trying to think through. But in terms of wealth, I mean, projects have been going well. Well, actually, an epiphany I had the other day was whether to pursue a self-funded search. And all that would mean is going and looking for a business to buy instead of doing a dedicated start. And the business I would buy would be like a small, boring business, like a laundry or a car wash that's near school. Just buying it, operating it, and really learning what it takes, what it means to do a deal. Because that would be the most valuable thing from that would be the experience of searching, buying, and closing the deal, not the actual deal itself. Like the laundromat would probably generate a couple $100 a month, maybe 1,000 if I'm lucky. The biggest thing would be the skills that it teaches me as I'm doing that. And then also being able to put that experience under my belt, take it into a different opportunity vehicle, which would be a larger business, and then seeing where things go from there. And I think staying with the search fund that I'm at, Succession, I think the plan will probably be to stay with him till the end of his search or till he closes the business, and then seeing where things go from there. But yeah, that's the biggest thing. In terms of niche and news, really honing down on the systems in terms of outreach and editing and publishing and all the stuff like that. But honestly, we'll see where that takes me. Really just over the next 2 weeks, going to be a lot of family time. So little to no focus on work or wealth, I think. It'll mainly just be chilling with the fam and relaxing, taking those 2 weeks to chill and then come back into the new year feeling ready to dive into things. Looking forward to it. I record these episodes completely free to share success with everyone. So the only thing I ask is that if you learned anything or found something interesting in this episode, just leave a review and share it with a friend. Only takes 5 seconds and it would mean the world. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next episode. Tatok, see you.